Hello guys, yeah, I'm Yusaku here, and welcome to my Yugioh Vrains episode 10 review. Now, before getting started with everything that's happened to Yugioh Everything and his channel being shut down, and a lot of the videos that he got shut down because of just using screenshots, not clips or anything, when all of us believed screenshots to be safe and not needing to worry about copyright strikes when using those, I'm not going to touch screenshots anymore on my videos. Sorry, I know it kind of sucks. I'm going to miss doing the opening montages and those types of things. It was a lot of fun. As much time as it took me, I still did really enjoy it. So with that being the case, I'm going to stick with using the Yugioh Pro footage and like the Arc 5 Tag Force footage and those types of things. Hopefully that's not too bad, and just do my voice narration over it the way I have for these past couple of Vrains reviews. Now let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts on the episode. Before getting into all of the details of the episode, I gotta say, I feel like episode 10 threw off the pacing progression that Vrains had going on up until now. I think I pointed out in one of my other videos how they seem to be following, an episode or two of dueling, and it was one duel, then plot, then episode or two of one duel, and then plot. So it was duel plot, duel plot, duel plot. Now we sort of have a back-to-back duel, although it's kind of the same duel, with Revolver ending the speed duel and then taking them into our first master duel. I don't know, it just feels slightly awkward with the pacing. I hope the duel doesn't drag on too long, because the one thing I've liked about Vrains, and I think Arc 5 usually did this pretty well, and Zexal was definitely a nice transition period into this, was the duels didn't drag on too long. I mean, there were times in Duel Monsters back when we used to see those like 6-episode duels where it just felt like, this is cool and all, but you could have fit it all into, say, maybe 3 episodes at most. And I just feel it's a little bit early in the show yet to be having a super stretched out duel. I hope that maybe it concludes in the next episode, especially considering they're starting to include a lot of highly relevant plot elements that we'll get into, that I really want to see how those unfold, but that's just me nitpicking about pacing. And out of those plot elements I just mentioned, we're going to go ahead and start off with the fact that these chess pieces seem to have known Revolver's father at some point, which is really interesting because it means he was probably an employee of theirs. I'm thinking maybe he worked for them, he developed the Cyverse for them, then maybe he realized there was something extremely dangerous about it. They ignored him when he brought it up. They said, no, we want to keep making money, or whatever it is that they're using Vrains for. You can either shut your mouth and not say anything, or get out of here, and so he got out of there. If he is indeed the guy who's medically, being taken care of in intensive care that we saw in the one episode when Revolver stepped out of Vrains, then it's quite possible that the chess pieces did that to him, and they end up being the overall villains. Now, my perspective on this is extremely skewed, because I think it was in my last video I mentioned I'm really beginning to believe that the chess pieces in Soltech are going to be the main antagonists by the end of this arc, as with Revolver being the primary rival, rivals usually are good by the end of Yugioh, and with him leading Hanoi, I'd be surprised if they're entirely bad. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves and then, say, Bishop takes over, which is a popular fan theory, and then Bishop still does some wrong things, but I have a feeling he's going to be one of those guys who ends up being the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so maybe they semi-defeat Bishop, leave him in a defeated state where he's not doing a lot to fight him anymore, and then he helps the gang take down Soltech or something like that. I'm jumping way ahead of myself here, but nonetheless. Moving right along, but talking about the relationship between the Knights of Hanoi and Soul Technology, my question becomes, why all of a sudden does Revolver feel the need to hide from them when they could have shut down the duel at any time before? What is it that he's going to do while hiding within that data storm that changes everything and makes him fear Soul Technologies all of a sudden? And his father probably fears them too, given his father was all part of the plan. Heck, it's almost implied his father's the mastermind of the plan. Before, Hanoi's kind of just acted a lot more openly, and he hasn't seemed to fear what they can do back to him. Does it have something to do with that field spell he activated, the fire prison or whatever that shut down the Cyverse at the end of the episode? I don't know, it's really hard to judge, and I think it's interesting because something clearly separates this specific scenario. Is it maybe that somehow Yusaku's loosely connected to Soul Technology in his hidden past, and if he's messed up, realizes his connection to Soul Tech, he'd seek help, or something crazy like that? I really don't know. I just think it's interesting, and I doubt that was a mistake in the writing, that this is different than every other time. Of course, it's also possible that this is the first time Revolver we've seen him doing something super outright. A lot of times he's sent his minions, so it's certainly possible he's just trying to protect himself, and his father's trying to protect him, with Revolver being his son, that, just a father-son relationship. And my next question after that becomes, when Revolver activates his field spell during the duel and it actually shuts off Ignis and seems to like temporarily make him crash or kill him or something like that, it's hard to say. Regardless, he seems to shut down in some way, shape, or form. If he can do that just in the middle of a duel with a field spell, why couldn't he have done something much more powerful in the Cyverse using a strong hack or something like that? Was this just a newly developed piece of technology? Is it that Yusaku's duel disc is preventing him from fully destroying the Ignis, and that's the reason he needs to win the duel, and he's removing Ignis because Ignis has been helping Yusaku with things like being able to retrieve cards from the data storm? I don't know, but it's just, it kind of makes me wonder, are there any limits to Revolver's power within like Vrains outside of whatever checks the AI can put on him? Those checks, of course, being being able to match a lot of his powers and such move for move, with the Storm Access ability, and linking Yusaku to being able to use Storm Access, which is the same maneuver that Revolver uses without an AI, and those types of things. But if Revolver's so powerful in this space, once more, why does he seem to fear Soul Tech all of a sudden? It's all very interesting, and I'm super curious to see why it unfolds, and that's why the pacing of this episode, I don't want to see the duel drag on and on and on, because I'm just being a little bit impatient, quite honestly. Because I brought it up, might as well go ahead and jump into the duel. I'm actually enjoying the duel a good bit, especially if you set aside the fact that I am just concerned it may drag on too long for my own liking. I'm enjoying what they are doing with the duel. Like I said, I'm just really curious to jump into where the plot is heading right now. And the reason I'm enjoying it so much is because I think they're mixing things up. Revolver, despite being Yusaku's rival, is not just playing a straightforward beatdown deck. As soon as we entered the Master Duel, he's playing more of a lockdown deck where he's preventing Yusaku from doing a lot of things, versus traditionally in the past, whenever we've had a Yu-Gi-Oh rival, they played a beatdown deck, Kaiba with his blue eyes. Then GX rival, pretty much take your pick, other than Edo, he was a bit more defensive and time stall-y oriented. Then you go on to 5Ds, there was no doubt Jack Atlas was beat down. Kite was pretty much beat down too. He was a little bit more strategic, but Kite's also probably one of the best duelists we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Then if you go on to Arc 5, Reiji was pretty beatdown oriented as well. He did have some lockdown, but in Arc 5 a lot of the characters' stronger monsters had at least a little bit of lockdown oriented too, just because that's the way the card game's evolving. But Revolver, on the other hand, he's not really pulling these aggressive attacking plays. He's more so just trying to shut Yusaku down, even up to his field spell, limiting his Cyverse monster's effects. So it's just very different for me, and I like seeing a rival do that. I think Revolver's showing a bit more restraint than we've seen from some of our rivals, other than, say, Reiji. Reiji's probably shown the most restraint before him. And then going on from that, I also kind of like the way it's shaping up to have a little bit of 5D's reminiscence between the two dragons, because within this duel, or the speed duel part of it, I should say, Revolver managed to get his Topologic Bomber Dragon. We briefly see a dragon fly by Yusaku when he completes his Storm Access ability right before the duel ends, and that does appear to be Firewall Dragon. So honestly, this is just reminding me a little bit of when we first saw Stardust and Red Dragon Archfiend face each other's, and I wouldn't be surprised if those two monsters end up facing each other, Firewall and a Topologic Bomber Dragon, at the end of this duel, and I think it's going to be an awesome throwdown. It's going to be great to see the two dragons fighting each other, and I'm wondering if that won't trigger something regarding the plot, just because there are those light 5Ds vibes here, and just having ace monsters trigger aspects of the plot is nothing new in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, look at Arc 5 and 5Ds. I pointed this out one other time. You had the Signer Dragons, then you had the Dimension Dragons, which just played a huge role in how everything ended up unfolding. And if those two dragons meet up at the end of this episode, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Topologic Bomber Dragon wins. Granted, I haven't done an analysis of their two card effects and how they relate to one another, because it's not super uncommon for the rival and the main characters to ace monsters to have effects that complement or are opposites of each other and that type of thing. But nonetheless, I just really have a gut feeling that Yusaku may end up losing this duel. Things are against his favor right now, and it just seems like they might be heading in that direction for the plot. It was also make it so that when Go was brought up before by Kusanagi as being an ally, that was some foreshadowing, because if Yusaku ends up getting defeated and he's in a desperate situation, maybe he could go to Go for some help, because they're sort of acquaintances at this point, almost kind of friends, that could trigger their friendship and progress it with some of those typical Yu-Gi-Oh themes of friendship, and then the best friends helping them get back on their feet, and those types of things. So we'll have to see how that goes. I guess also part of it's that I would like to see Yusaku lose in this. I don't want to see another Yusei who's invincible in dueling. I like Yusei, don't get me wrong, but he really had one loss throughout the show, and that was to Kiryu, and that was because he was just first facing an Earthbound Immortal, and they were almost impossible for him to overcome, and any duelist to overcome in that scenario. Everybody was pushed to their brink dealing with them. In regards to Yusaku losing because of the scenario he's in, I kind of doubt it. I think he'll recover from where he's at with all of his Cyverse monsters being shut down in some way, and he'll find a way to keep fighting. I think if he's going to lose, it's going to be a little bit later, probably towards the end of the next episode, but I'm not entirely certain on that. It just seems like a cliffhanger they may go for. But he could also easily recover. I mean, he's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Main protagonist. He got out of a tight spot last episode, and they have, just the main protagonists generally, have a tendency to get out of really tight spots. I mean, look at the duel against Darts where a Tem generated a monster with over infinite attack. I am curious to see how Yusaku responds to not having Ai with him at this point in the duel, because Ai so far has sort of served the same role as a spirit partner in the previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows, though he hasn't been quite as involved in like the teaching portion the way, say, Ash or a Tem had in terms of teaching Yusaku lessons so far. He has helped educate him on speed duels and stuff, so I would still qualify him as the equivalent of a speed or a spirit partner. But still, I think Yusaku for the first time seemed genuinely concerned when Ai was gone. I think it was that he's starting to develop a bit of a care for the program. I mean, it wasn't just a sort of, oh crap, the one weapon I have against them is gone. It was, oh crap, my friend is sort of lost, or at least that was the way I read his expression. And then I wondered, will I be okay if Yusaku manages to get rid of the field spell? We'll have to wait and see. We don't know the limits of how powerful duels are within this world yet, and we don't truly know what Revolver's limits within Link Vrains are yet either. Either way, that about wraps up my thoughts for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome. Either way, I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on the episode down below. Are you excited to see where this duel is going? Do you think Yusaku may still lose? Do you think we're going to have a Clash of the Dragons before the end of the duel? And what relationship does Revolver's father have to Soul Technologies? Thanks for tuning in, guys, and as always, have a great day.